friends, it's Lisa, and today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. So first of all, it is very windy outside today, so I don't know if that will pick up on camera. If it does, I apologize. I hope it's not too annoying, but I'm going to be sharing with you guys my February wrap-up. So like last month, I'm going to talk about not only the books that I read, but the movies and shows I watched as well. And I'm also going to be going in order when we talk about the books from my lowest rated book to my highest rated book of the month, just because I feel like that's a good way of showing you guys where on the scale of star ratings they kind of fit. Because I know for me, sometimes even if I give a book the same star rating as another book, one of the books I technically liked more, so I just thought that that would be a good way to share with you guys my thoughts and feelings on the books that I read in a month. But yeah, let's just get into the video. I don't want this intro to be too long, and I know these videos always take me a long time to film, so let's just get into it. So my lowest rated book from this month is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the novella that kind of takes place between the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, A Court of Wings and Ruin, and the new book that was just released, A Court of Silver Flames. It kind of helps to bridge the gap between the original series, the original 3 books, and the new books that she is starting to publish. So this book is a novella. It's very short. Not a whole lot happens in it, which is fine because it's a novella, but I personally just think it's very meh. I think if you are a hardcore A Court of Thorns and Roses stan, you're gonna love this because you're just seeing the characters like celebrate solstice, which is basically Christmas in this world, and you're just seeing them have like a good time and have like happier moments because you don't really see that a lot in the original trilogy. So you're seeing them have a more chilled, relaxed time, as well as seeing some of the things that do come up in the new book, A Court of Silver Flames. You do see some of those seeds being planted. You start seeing where characters are kind of at and where they're going to be going from there on out in the new books. But I feel like this is mainly just to see the characters have a good time with one another and to finally get some of the scenes that maybe you've been wanting. Just seeing the characters have a good time together. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoyed reading it. I love the characters. I love, you know, seeing them celebrate solstice together and seeing these happier moments. It just isn't like the best part of this series for me, and it's just very like meh and just kind of a little unnecessary, but also like I did enjoy it. I don't know how to explain it because it just feels like it didn't need to exist, but like it does exist and I've read it. This was a reread. And like, it's fine. Like, it's enjoyable enough. It's just not something that I feel is necessary. Also, to me, this is always just gonna seem like a slight money grab. I know this book gave a lot of the hardcore fans a lot of scenes that they wanted, a lot of moments with characters that they wanted. My cat is waking up on the floor next to me. I know that this book gave a lot of the hardcore fans what they wanted, but it also was being sold for $17.99. And it's not worth that. There's not enough in this book to be sold as like a normal young adult book. And now as an And now as an adult series, the paperback with the new covers is being sold for $16, I think. I think I looked it up because I was like, okay, I have to see with these new covers and it being an adult series now, like how expensive is this book? Paperback $16, the hardcover full price is $28. Don't buy it that price. Please find a discount code, find a steal, find a coupon. Do not pay full price for this. So yeah, overall, I mean, I did enjoy it, but it's also not like my favorite thing and it just doesn't really feel necessary. So I kind of have conflicting emotions, but it was very average for me, which is why I gave it 3 stars. Continuing on with more Sarah J. Maas, I promise I did read other things other than Sarah J. Maas this month. Please just bear with me. The next book I have to talk about is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, and I gave this 4 stars. This was a very, very low 4-star, like it was just barely a 4-star. I was really unsure about how I was going to feel about this book going into my reread because I remember when I first read it, I did enjoy it, and then I started seeing a lot of criticisms about it and a lot of people who just really hated it. And a lot of those things I disagreed with, some of them I did agree with a lot of them, and I feel like I got confused as to how I actually felt about it, so this reread reminded me. I did enjoy it. There were a couple of things I didn't love. I do feel like some of the things at the end happen a little too conveniently. They're a little too convenient. It's a little too perfect. I mean, I do like the way things end. I'm happy with the way things ended, but I also feel like everything kind of happened perfectly for these characters, and I don't know. It just was like one convenient thing after another. And there was also something that we learn about one of the characters in this book that I just don't know if it was handled the best or explained the best. I don't know. It just didn't feel very authentic. It felt like Sarah J. Maas has been called out on her lack of diversity in her books and went, here. And it kind of just didn't feel like it was genuine. But other than that, I did enjoy it. I definitely think it's my least favorite out of the original 3 books, but I did enjoy it. I do, for the most part, like the way things kind of came together in the end. Also, there is a part of this book where there's a meeting with a lot of people, a lot of important people, and that part will always be tea. That part will always be great. I was literally, when I went into my reread for this book, was looking forward to reading that section of the book. I just was waiting for that part to come up. So that was great. But yeah, I reread it, found out how I actually felt about it. It's fine. I enjoyed it. There definitely are a lot of issues, and I agree with a lot of the criticisms of this book, but for the most part, I did enjoy it, and I do like the way that this original trilogy kind of wrapped up. The next book I have to talk about is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this was a 4-star as well. This was slightly higher of a 4-star than A Court of Wings and Ruin. So I read Grown for the 20-something book club, which is hosted by my friends Casey and Mafalda. I will have the 20-something book club Twitter linked below in the description. You should definitely go and check it out. And what's funny is I read it for that book club, and then I couldn't even go to the live show that they had for it, so I will be rewatching that at some point. But I'm still really glad I read this because this book was, I don't know how to explain it. It sounds weird to say I enjoyed it because it's such a hard and difficult book to read, but I think it has a lot of important discussions and is very powerful. So in this book, we're following this girl, Enchanted, who is a 17-year-old girl who just really wants to be a singer. That's like her dream. And she ends up going to this audition, the singing competition audition, and she ends up not making it past that process, but Corey Fields, who is this popular singer, ends up kind of seeking her out after the audition, and that is kind of what kickstarts them getting to know one another and starting this relationship. I don't want to call it a relationship because it was not good. Corey Fields is actually a 28-year-old man who is a popular singer, has influence over the music industry, and can get Enchanted like her foot in the door. And this book was just, I don't even know how to describe this book because it's just so heartbreaking. Basically, Corey Fields knows that he has this advantage over her. He knows that he has power in this industry. He knows he can help her out. So he takes advantage of that power he has over her, gets her to trust him, and then it just becomes this terrible situation to watch. You see Enchanted become infatuated with him, and you see that she clearly thinks that this is out of the kindness of his heart. She thinks that this is true love, but he is just manipulating this situation. He's manipulating her. There is physical and emotional abuse going on. It's just so difficult to read about because he knows that he has the power to give her what she wants, and it ends up causing her to get into this situation that she feels stuck in and can't get out of. It's just so hard to read this book. My stomach was in knots the whole time. I felt sick to my stomach. You're reading about this guy who has power over her in all aspects. He's able to manipulate any situation. He's isolated her from her family. He's completely twisted her mind to think that she is the problem when he does something wrong, and that she needs to stay with him so that she can get her ticket to being a singer and to getting what she's always dreamed of. And it is sickening, honestly. It's so difficult to read. So obviously there are a lot of trigger warnings in this book, so definitely go into this book aware of that and avoid it if it's something that might upset you. There actually is trigger warnings at the very beginning of the book, which I really appreciated. I wish that that was something that more books had. I feel like that's something that should be necessary, but yeah, there definitely is a lot of heavier triggering topics, so that is at the beginning of the book, which is great and helpful. But yeah, this book was really difficult to read. To read about such a young girl being stuck in this situation, knowing that this happens to so many people, it was just so difficult to read. But I also feel like it was so important to read, not only to kind of learn about how these situations come about and maybe how to approach them if you find that you are starting to get into the situation, but there also was a lot of discussion on victim blaming and how often Black women are not believed as white women are. At one point they do go to the police and talk about what has happened to Enchanted, and they don't believe her. And that was incredibly frustrating, and just I think the discussion on victim blaming I think was so important to see and read about. I will say I feel like my biggest thing with this book, the reason it wasn't a 5-star, is because I felt like a lot of the ending was really rushed, and that kind of caused a lot of other problems for me. So there's one tiny little mystery, a side little mystery that's going on with a certain character, and you're not quite sure what's going on there, and I just felt like that whole part was really unnecessary. it didn't add anything to the story really. I felt like maybe if the ending wasn't so rushed and it was given more time, it would have made a lot more sense, or not necessarily more sense, it just would have been given the appropriate amount of time to not just feel like thrown in and then be like, okay, just kidding, it's fine, you know? Also, by the end, I do feel like because the ending was rushed, a lot of the reveals with like the murder mystery kind of aspect of this book just didn't seem as important. I feel like the discussions on victim blaming and how other people were dealing with this situation, and also like how often Black women are not believed, that discussion was so well done, and I just also wish it was like they spent more time talking about it. And it just felt like there needed to be, you know, this conclusion with this murder mystery, like who killed him and what happened with that some of the more discussions that I wish we had had and spent more time with were kind of pushed aside for that conclusion. And I also feel like because the ending was rushed, a lot of the conclusions to things, I was just like, okay. I just wish that there was more of a focus on some of the more important discussions that were happening in this book. I don't feel like that murder mystery aspect needed to even be a part of this book. But I will say, I do feel like the more prominent aspects of this book, the relationship between Enchanted and Corey, how he was manipulating her, how he was physically and emotionally abusing her, how like he isolated her from his family, how he made her trust him, just all of that was the more important part of this book and like the biggest part of this book. And I'm glad for it because it was the most like important part of this book. So that was good that that was kind of the main focus. I do feel like a lot of the things at the end were kind of like just kind of thrown together and happened really quickly, but for the most part, the whole concept of this book, the way that it deals with these types of relationships and what signs to look for and how it kind of comes to be, and the discussion on these types of things, I think was done really well and was so important. So I definitely would still recommend if you are interested in this book. Next, we're going back to Sarah J. Maas. So the next book that I have to talk about is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. So this is kind of the new book in the continuation of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I feel like it's like the first trilogy and then there's like going to be another trilogy, you know? I don't know how to explain it, but this is the first new book following these characters. So in this book, we're actually following Nesta, who is Feyre's sister. Feyre is the main character in the original trilogy. We are following her sister Nesta, who is not always the nicest person. And after the events of the third book, A Court of Wings of Ruin, Nesta is really struggling mentally, and these characters in this book are kind of trying to get her out of that situation and trying to get her some help. I did do a whole spoiler-filled vlog for this book, so if you've read this book and you want to know like all of my thoughts and like my experience reading this book, I will have that video linked in the cards as well as down below. But to give some people who may not have read this yet some spoiler-free thoughts, I did really enjoy this. I definitely was hesitant going into this because I don't necessarily love Nesta. I really did not like Nesta in the first two books of this series, and with the third book, A Court of Wings and Ruin, I still didn't like her, but I could tell that there was more to her character. I was like, there is something more to you, there's something going on, you don't appear to just be the mean-spirited person that I've been thinking you have been this whole series. So I went into this very curious and a little concerned about what was going to be going on because I don't love Nesta. I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. I didn't know if Nesta's past actions and the way that she's acted in the past were going to be like excused. And that is something, in my opinion, that was done really well with this book. I don't think we were given excuses for Nesta's past behavior. We were given explanations, but we weren't giving excuses. I don't think Sarah J. Maas wrote this in a way where she was trying to make you like completely ignore and forget everything Nesta's done in the past. And also Nesta herself and the other characters in this book also don't excuse her actions. They don't let her get away with the way that she's acted in the past. And that was definitely my biggest concern going into this book. I thought that maybe it was just going to be excused for the sake of this book. But I feel like Nesta and also all the other characters kind of coming to terms and learning to deal with what Nesta has done in the past was actually such a big part of this book. And Nesta learning to grow and learning how to cope in a better way was definitely a big part of this book. So I actually did really enjoy seeing Nesta's journey in this book, seeing how she kind of handled situations, and seeing just how her brain worked. I just realized my cat, can you see him? I just realized my cat is laying on the floor behind me. What an angel. Anyways, that was something I didn't understand with the original trilogy. I didn't understand how her brain worked to react to certain situations the way that she did why she lashed out at people, why she reacted the way that she did. I didn't understand it, and I feel like this book, we kind of see inside her head and we see why she reacts that way. And that's no excuse for the way that she acts and the way that she's treated people. And this book doesn't give excuses. It's not trying to excuse that behavior because of the way that her brain works. It's not trying to say like, oh, what she's done in the past is okay because of this. It's no, here's an explanation as to why she is the way that she is, and here's how we're going to move forward from that. So I liked that aspect. I was concerned there were going to be excuses, but there were not. I also did like the romance in this book as well. I liked seeing more of Cassian, of course, and also a little bit more of Azriel as well. I feel like we don't really see a lot of him, and I can't wait for his own book, but anyway, I did like seeing more of Cassian and also being inside Cassian's head as well. And yeah, for the most part, I did really enjoy this. I did give this a 4.5 star. I don't know if I said that earlier. I still haven't actually rated it on Goodreads. I just realized filming this now that I still have not put my rating on Goodreads, but I'm going to give it a 5 star on Goodreads, but specify that it's a 4.5 because I did really enjoy this. I just didn't love like the political aspects of this book. And not that I didn't like them and find them interesting. I just felt like Sarah J Maas kind of threw them in there because she felt like she had to, but they were not given the attention or the importance to make me actually feel anything about them. Someone did comment on my vlog for this book that the reason maybe that we weren't given as much details to the political aspects of this book is because we're in Nesta's point of view and some of the political stuff doesn't necessarily matter to her, and maybe that is why, and that would make a lot of sense. But I do feel like some of the political stuff does kind of affect her, and you would think that she would maybe be a bit more interested, and I just felt like it was just kind of thrown in there because it needed to have some political plot line going on, but it just wasn't given the attention. It was kind of pushed to the side for the romance and Nesta's growth, and it just didn't feel important when like big things started happening with that. I just didn't really care, and I'm sure that that will expand in the future books, but I honestly would have been fine with this book just being about Nesta and her journey and the romance and everything like that. It didn't need to have that political aspect for me to still enjoy this, but I'm sure it will expand in the future. It just wasn't given the necessary attention for me to care as much. But other than that aspect, I did enjoy it. I would definitely recommend if you are intrigued, even in the slightest amount, to pick it up. I know a lot of people were not as interested because it is following Nesta, and a lot of people don't like Nesta. And if you really hate Nesta, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I think if you are interested even the slightest amount, I would definitely recommend picking it up. But I will say that there are some more trigger warnings in this book that I think should have been at the beginning of this book. Obviously, Nesta is not doing well in this book, so there's a lot of discussion with depression, like her declining mental health, suicidal thoughts, tendencies kind of thing. There's also mentions of rape as well as abuse. So definitely go into this book knowing that there are some more heavier topics in this book. This also is an adult book, so the steamy scenes are a lot more steamier than past books. So definitely go into this book knowing those things, but I definitely think if you are interested in the slightest and it seems interesting to you and that you might like it, I would recommend picking it up. That book is so heavy, my arm hurts. And the final book that I have to talk about, and my only 5-star read of the month, was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So I believe this is one of the first adult romances that I've ever read. I've read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and that's it. So I was very excited to see how I'd feel about it, and I really enjoyed it. So in this book, we're following Chloe Brown, who has a near-death experience and kind of realizes that her life leading up to that point has not been maybe the most exciting, so she ends up creating a list to help her get a life. And to help her kind of check items off of that list, she ends up meeting Red, who is like the maintenance guy or like the handyman for her apartment that she moves into. So she gets Red to help her out and check items off of this list. And of course, it's a romance, so sparks end up flying between them. And I loved it so much. It was so good. I loved reading about like the banter between Red and Chloe. And I also loved just the way that they both had things that they were struggling with. So Chloe has a chronic illness, and I can't speak on the representation of that. I am not an Own Voices reviewer on that chronic illness, but to me, it seemed like it was done well. I liked that it was something that is a part of her life. She does have a chronic illness. It does affect her life, and you see it just kind of woven into this story in such a natural way. Like, yes, she has a chronic illness, but that's not all her character is. That's not all that she thinks about. It's not all that is like a focus. It is a part of her life, and it does like cause issues and things to happen, and certain ways that she has to go about things are affected because of it, but it's not her entire character. There's so many more things to Chloe than that, and I just loved that. And also Red is kind of dealing with the aftermath of a kind of abusive relationship. I think there's trigger warnings at the beginning of this book too. It says at the beginning, there's an author's note, this story touches on the process of healing after an abusive relationship. If this is a topic that you're sensitive to, please be aware. I hope I have treated the issue, my characters, and you, the reader, gently. So yeah, that was also an aspect of this book, but I loved Red so much. I loved that he knew about Chloe's chronic illness and he treated her, like, he just went out of his way to make things easier for her, but didn't treat her differently because of it. Like, at one point they go camping. Anyway. Sir. But they go camping and he like actively chooses a spot on the campground that is closer to the cars. So in case like she gets wiped out like walking that long, like she doesn't have to do any crazy hiking or anything like that. Like it's just an easy walk to the car if she needs to do that. So there was just so many little things that he went out of his way to do because of it, but didn't treat her differently. And I just loved them. Can you tell I'm overwhelmed? It was just so cute. And I've heard that the books only get better. Like I think the second one, Take a Hint, Eve Brown? No. Wait. Take a Hint, Danny. Wait. Oh my god. What's the new one coming out? Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Take a Hint, Danny Brown? I should look it up. And I'm really excited too because I loved this one so much, and there's other books that Talia Hibbert has written about the other Brown sisters. So I think the only one out so far is Take a Hint, Danny Brown, but Act Your Age, Eve Brown, I think is coming out in March, maybe? But I've heard that people like Take a Hint, Danny Brown even more than this one, so I'm really excited because I really loved this, so definitely will be continuing on and reading the other books as well. I highly recommend if you are wanting to read adult romance, this is a really good one to start with. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I will say the conflict kind of in like the third act of this book, I didn't love it necessarily, but I do think it was reasonable the way these characters reacted to that situation. And I'm also glad that that kind of conflict didn't last so long. If that conflict had been dragged out for a really long time, I would have been a lot more bothered by it, but I feel like it kind of wrapped up pretty quickly, and I also understand why the characters reacted the way that they did. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend if you're looking to get into adult romances. I loved it so much, and now I want to read even more adult romances, so if you have some recommendations that are like this, please give them to me. Okay, so those were all of the books that I read in the month of February, so now I'm going to talk about the TV shows and the movies that I watched. So I started a new TV show this month, and it is Gilmore Girls. I have never seen this show before, so I'm finally watching it. It's finally happening. This wasn't necessarily a show that seemed like something I would enjoy, so I just kind of never thought to watch it. I also was very young when the show was being released. I think the first season came out in 2000. I was literally 2, so I wasn't watching it then. And I know it's been on Netflix for quite a while. It just never seemed like something that would be up my alley, but surprise, I am enjoying it. So there really isn't that much to this show. We're following the Gilmore Girls. We're following Lorelai and Rory, their mom and daughter, and we're following them and their lives in this town, and that's really it. But it's really cute and also just like very cozy. It's such like an easy show to just put on and just like relax to. I feel like I do watch a lot more shows that require me to like pay attention and require me to use my brain. I feel like in the past I have watched a lot of like sci-fi, fantasy types of shows where you kind of have to pay attention. And even like last month in January, I was watching a K-drama, so even though like it wasn't necessarily hard to follow plotline wise, I still needed to pay attention because I needed to read the subtitles. But this show is just so easy to turn on and just like cozy up and relax and watch it. You know, there's a lot of, you know, jokes from the early 2000s that probably wouldn't have been in a show now, but for the most part it's still really cute and really cozy. I also love that it's set in a New England state. It's set in Connecticut, which like out of all the New England states, you went with Connecticut. A choice. But I do love that it does feel like home in a way, because it's like it just looks like a small town that I would see in New England, and I just love that aspect as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I watched all of season 1 and like 4 episodes of season 2 in February, and I definitely will be continuing on this month. I haven't met Jess yet, which is like the boy everyone freaks out about, so I think I actually am up to the point where he's about to come in. I think he comes in on episode 5, so fingers crossed I don't hate him and people don't have to cancel me. But yeah, really enjoying it. Very cozy, very easy to just put on and relax to, so I'm definitely really enjoying that. So I'm the type of person that only watches one show at a time, so that's all I have to talk about for shows, but I did watch a couple of movies this month. So the first movie I watched was Always and Forever, which is the third and final To All the Boys I Loved Before movie, and I really enjoyed it. I was really nervous to watch it because it was the same director and everything as the second movie, and I did not love the second movie. I loved the first To All the Boys I Loved Before movie. I actually think I prefer the first movie to like all of the books in the series. The second movie, however, was not it. And then the third movie, I was pleasantly surprised. So I did really like it. I liked all the different like traveling parts of this book. So they were in Korea at the beginning of the movie, and then they also traveled to New York. And I just, well, it made me sad because I was like, oh, traveling, what's that? Are we ever gonna know ever again? I don't know. But I really liked that aspect. I loved, okay, there were so many like callbacks to the original movie that just like hurt my feelings. Like when they were on the bus traveling to New York, there was a remix of the song I Like Me Better, which is in the original movie when they're on the bus going on the ski trip. I'm just like, oh, they really did that. Played with my heartstrings like that. I also liked a lot of the character development with a lot of the characters. I feel like Peter acted in a way that I did not expect him to act. He acted kind of mature, which was nice. I don't really like Peter that much in the books, but Peter in the movie is like, he's fine. We love him. And also Jen, I loved seeing the character growth from the first movie with Jen to the last movie, and I don't know, I just really liked it. It was really cute. I can definitely see myself rewatching it in the future. I rewatch the first one all the time. It's definitely like a comfort movie to me, and I can definitely see this third one kind of becoming similar to that and being a comfort for me. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Still prefer the first one, but I think the third one would be my second favorite, and then the second one is last, but I'm just still really happy that we got all of these books adapted. I think overall it's a very strong adaptation series, and I just really enjoyed seeing these characters come to life, and it's just such a comforting series and comforting characters, and I just had a great time. I'm sad that there's no more movies and no more books to adapt, but they were really good. I really enjoyed them, and I do like this final installment a lot. And then the final movie that I watched this month was a rewatch of Tangled. I love this movie. So there was actually a wine night that I was partaking in, and we started watching Tangled and we got like 20 minutes in, and that's when I fell asleep. So the next day I was like, I need to finish watching Tangled. I can't start Tangled and not watch it. So I ended up just watching the whole thing the next day, and it's just so good. I love this movie. I love it so much. And of course I cried. I don't know if there will ever be a time where I can watch Tangled and not cry. I don't know if we will ever see that day. So yeah, I watched Tangled. That was the last thing I watched yesterday, and that is the last thing I have to talk about. I did start reading a couple more books actually in February. I just didn't finish them. So I started reading Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, and it's a buddy read with my friend Franny, and I think we just didn't continue on, and we didn't like communicate about it, so it got put on hold. Not really intentionally, we just haven't read it. And I also started my reread of Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which I'm still reading now. So we'll talk about those next month. But that is going to be it for my February wrap-up. I would love to know what you guys have read or watched in the month of February. I always love having those discussions with you guys in the comments. Let me know maybe like your favorite book or like movie or show or whatever that you watched and read in the month of February. I would love to know. But I think that that is going to complete this video, so don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.